I kept thinking about that crab, and when I was sort of trying to think of different creatures for this book, I thought of the crab that I had so loved, and I tried to sort of find, the origin of where it had appeared, and I learned it was this deep sea crab called the Yeti crab, which lives around hydrothermal vents and cold seeps, which are basically gaps in the seafloor where like geothermally heated water gushes up, and the crabs all live just like packed densely around these gaps of heated water, these small like oases of life in the deep sea. And honestly, I looked at this crab and I saw its claws, which were very hairy, and I was like, that looks like a boa, and that's gay. So like, let me let me see if I can write into that. And I was looking at all these crabs like all crammed together, and I was thinking about times where I was crammed together, with a bunch of other people in a dark space, and I thought of nightclubs, and I thought of like queer nightlife, and so I said maybe this connection is enough. And then I was just writing about these crabs, and I learned that there's this one species of Yeti crab called Kiwa puravita, which lives off of the coast of Costa Rica. And it basically, scientists filmed this crab like off of these hydrothermal vents, waving their claws back and forth, like very slowly. And the scientists were like, we are like tentatively calling it dancing. And I was like, wow, I couldn't have planned this better. And basically what the crabs are doing is they're farming bacteria, chemosynthetic bacteria that grow on their claws. And the bacteria basically use chemosynthesis to create food from the chemicals that are coming out of these cold seeps and hydrothermal vents, and then the crabs just eat off of their claws the bacteria. And so I think, it was just sort of like, for each essay, I would find a creature that I felt like there was something there, like I felt a calling to it in some way, and would try to sort of delve in there and see if there was a connection. And some, essays didn't pan out, and I dumped them because the connection wasn't really there. But in there, for other examples, there were parts of my life that I did want to write about, and then I sort of surveyed the sea to find like a good creature for that. So when I wanted to write about like gender, I was like, well, I have to write about the cuttlefish, right? Like a very transformed, like a creature who's capable of immense transformation on a day-to-day basis, can change the color and texture of its skin, can appear, other sexes that it isn't. And I was really just like, this is an obvious route in. So yeah, not every essay had the same origin.
Animals that change sex eventually become male and female, but in the transition, what are they?
Funny enough, I think the most surprising animal was actually in my own back garden. Having travelled the world, the most amazing wonder of all actually, lives under the ground in the UK is the common garden mole. Because she's an amazing creature, because actually it's really hard to live underground. So my book's all about how female animals were marginalised and misunderstood by the scientific patriarchy, because Darwin was a Victorian man, and he said that females were basically, they were Victorian housewives, so passive, coy and submissive. And so my book sort of explores that, but I was also really interested in how females, what it really means, how our understanding of female has broadened much beyond that. So I was particularly interested in animals that broke that mold, and the mole is one of them, because it's really hard living underground. You've got to catch worms for a living in the pitch dark. So evolution has given the mole some amazing adaptations. They can smell in stereo, so they can smell where the worms are in the pitch dark, and they've got an extra thumb so they can dig really hard. But the most amazing thing about the female mole are her balls, are her gonads. She's got what's described as ovotestes, that her gonads are internal, but they're part ovarian tissue and part testicular tissue. And during the breeding season, she produces eggs, that's why she's a female, but outside of the breeding season, her ovarian tissue shrinks and testicular tissue swells, and she pumps out tons of testosterone, makes her dig like a maniac and defend her worm larder and defend her pups. So this is like an amazing thing, right? And it's been known to science for a long time, and within the last few years, a global consortium of geneticists have decoded the mole's genome and found out how she manages to have flexible gonads. I mean, it's sort of, kind of an amazing feat, but actually what that story tells you is about the complexity of sexual differentiation and determination, which is something that I didn't appreciate. Even as somebody who studied genetics, I thought, oh, well, females are XX and males are XY, and all the genes that make a female are going to be on the X chromosome, and all the genes that make a male are going to be on the Y chromosome, and it's all going to be nice and neat and ordered. But it's just nothing like that.